Hello everyone and welcome to the World of Inspiration channel. The storyline this evening regards the world legendary Titanic ship, how it underwent wreckage, claimed thousands of lives and ended up more than 12,500 feet below the deep Atlantic Ocean waters. How did it all start? Before we kick off with the story, it's important to note that the wreckage and sinking of the Titanic ship was predicted 14 years before the commencement of its real construction. The prediction was done by one of the world's greatest writer icons called Dr. Morgan Robertson through his book entitled The Wreck of Titan or the Futility in the year 1895 when he first published the first edition of his book. The main theme of Dr. Morgan's book was stating that at some point in life, the world would build a very huge giant ship ever on Earth. The ship would undergo wreckage on April by colliding against a huge rock during its journey. It would then sink and cause thousands of deaths. Now, the construction of the Titanic ship was kicked off on the 31st of March, the year 1909. At a place called Belfast in England, bringing more than 900 workers on board, including constructors and engineers. The Titanic ship started causing deaths and injuries even before the end of its construction, during which 246 cases of constructors' injuries and deaths were experienced, including the death of the designer Mr. Thomas Andrew. The entire construction of the Titanic ship took a duration of 26 months to be successfully completed. Now, let's see how Titanic found its ways into the ocean waters. On 31st of May, the year 1911, the construction work was already finished and more than 100,000 people were at the scene to witness the testing launch of the Titanic ship. Dragging the Titanic ship from its construction site to the ocean waters was not a walkover. This was due to the hindrance created by its extremely heavy weight in addition to the area it occupied. Therefore, 20 powerful horses were used to drag the ship from River Lagan to the Atlantic Ocean. More than 22 tons of soaps and oil were poured along its paths to make it slide easily into the waters. Now, what happened when Titanic, or the moment Titanic got its ways into the ocean waters? The moment Titanic got its way into the ocean waters, it caused such unexpected huge water waves that covered other small ships and boats that were docking nearby. The Titanic was then docked on the Atlantic Ocean waters, readily waiting for its first journey mission to be scheduled. Several England residents were trying everything possible to have all it would take to be among the passengers on board during the very first trip by the Titanic ship. The Titanic was supposed to travel earlier before the beginning of the winter season. This was to help avert the ocean water barriers caused by the formation of winter icebergs. However, it took much longer waiting for other small ships called the Olympus or the Olympic ships that were supposed to travel together with the Titanic. This made the Titanic to travel on April the following year amidst the winter season. Now, on 10th of April the year 1912, the Titanic departed from Southampton of England for its very first trip, heading towards New York of USA. It was the world's breaking and trending news during those days regarding the launching of the very first trip by the Titanic. Suppose it were for the current days, then the news would have traversed the entire social media platforms such as Facebook, Snapchat, and even Twitter. The Titanic traveled successfully for 4 days without any problem. However, what took place on the night of the 14th of April had been so difficult to believe over the decades. So the fifth day of traveling was in progress, and everything was as fine as usual. The cool breezes of the ocean waters were so friendly and loving. The night of the 14th day of April was approaching. It was getting too cold and dark. The passengers on board were busy celebrating, feasting, drinking, and enjoying music as usual, with bands of musicians playing their best tunes. A 62-year-old Captain Edward Smith was operating the Titanic at its very best speed, cutting through the ocean waters like never before. At around 11:40 p.m. that night, 6 different signals of danger were already detected by the radar without any action taken by the ship captain. A 25-year-old overseer called Frederick Fleet, whose role was to use the telescope to observe any danger ahead, claimed to have lost the key to the cabin where the telescope was locked, and was then using his naked eyes to observe any obstacle and danger ahead amidst the dark ocean waters. Suddenly, Frederick never believed what he saw. A very huge black belt rock, about 100 feet tall. It was never easy for Frederick to see such a huge rock early enough, the reason being that it was too dark, as well as the rock itself being black. It was so panicking, having only about a minute to strike the rock head-on. The so panicked Frederick Fleet had no option rather than to shout, "Iceberg right ahead!" The officer William Murdoch, who replaced Captain Edward Smith as the captain in charge, got panicked as well. It was only about few seconds left before the officer started navigating to avert the collision against the rock. The panicked officer tried everything possible to escape the rock, but it was already too late. The ship therefore collided against the rock on its right side, resulting into a huge wreckage through which the water started getting inside the ship at a very high pressure. The scientist studied that if the officer never panicked, he would have averted the wreckage. Again, suppose he had left the ship to hit the huge black belt rock head-on, then there would have been little or no wreckage, for the strong metals that were rigged in front of the Titanic would have protected it from the collision wreckage. Passengers on board who were on serious celebrations and feasting only came to their right senses immediately the wreckage occurred. It was at that time when they realized it was not business as usual. The celebrations and feasting were no more, as everyone started thinking about his or her safety. It took 2 hours 40 minutes for the Titanic ship to fully sink and disappear below the deep ocean waters. That happened as everyone on board was in great confusion, running up and down, left and right for safety without bearing any fruit. The Titanic, which had the capacity to carry at least 64 emergency boats, didn't carry enough of such boats along with it, having carried only 20 boats at the beginning of its journey. Due to the heavily growing panic among the Titanic crews and captains, even the number of passengers they could rescue using each of the available boats was quite insignificant. They were just placing few people in each of the emergency boats without even noticing. For instance, the first emergency boat only rescued 28 passengers while it could carry at least 65 people. Again, during the rescue session, the rule of ladies first was used, making most of the people who succumbed to be men, as women and children were given the first priority. Unfortunately, those passengers who boarded the third bridge, that is the ground floor of the Titanic, had neither a woman, a child nor a man who survived the wreckage. Their bridge was located at the base of the ship. The third bridge passengers were mainly the middle class and the low class individuals. The second bridge and the first bridge were purposefully preserved for the high-class individuals. The third bridge or ground floor passengers on board had their door locked immediately before the Titanic took off. That was meant to stop them from scavenging and causing disturbance to parties organized by the high class who were on the first and the second floors of the ship. Even during the wreckage, no one remembered going back to open for those third bridge passengers, all of whom then submerged with the Titanic. Getting the ticket to board the first bridge or the second floor of the Titanic was costing a net worth of $4,350 during those days, which is currently translating to about a net worth of $69,600, a net worth of about 8,143,200 Kenyan shillings that could only be afforded by the high-class individuals. Titanic ship started submerging by its front section sinking slowly as its rear section was being pulled up above the ocean waters. The moment the ship was partially submerged, having its front end below and rear end above the waters, there was a sudden power blackout causing all the lights to go off. That made the hopes of survival to be in vain. By around 2:20 a.m. same night but already the following day, the Titanic ship, which was then flipped vertically with its head below the ocean waters and tail above the ocean waters, broke into two equal halves. The passengers who were still in continuous commotion struggling to look for the safer section within the partially submerged ship thought their game over, as all of them got themselves within the cold ocean waters. Being a winter season, the ocean waters were too cold at that time, with the temperature of the waters being -2 degrees Celsius and below. The doctors had it that the passengers who found their ways into the ocean waters by that time could rarely last for 30 seconds. That could be due to severe sudden heart attack from the extremely cold waters. Even those whose bodies could resist the heart attack couldn't have made it past 15 minutes before getting frozen to death. Even as everyone was succumbing from the wreckage, there was one bread baker by the name Mr. Charles Njugini who managed to survive for too long until the rescue team found him alive. Mr. Charles took too much alcohol just immediately before the wreckage occurred. While his fellows' bodies were getting frozen by the extremely cold ocean waters, Mr. Charles' body managed to withstand the harsh cold as the excess alcohol he took was seriously heating up his bloodstream. In the Titanic film, it captured the moment the ship was sinking. The Titanic band of musicians, even at that moment, were still enjoying playing the music. It's hard to believe whatever came over those musicians, neither did anyone understand whatever facts upon which their beliefs were based. A total of 1,514 people out of 2,200 passengers succumbed. Out of the 1,514 individuals who succumbed, only 336 bodies were discovered. The rest got sunk with the Titanic. 710 people survived the Titanic wreckage, none of whom is currently alive. The last one to live was the late Eliza Melvina, an England resident who died on May 2009 at the age of 97. She was only 2 months old when the Titanic massacre occurred. After the wreckage occurred, it took several years before discovering the point within the Atlantic Ocean where the remains of the Titanic ship were sunk. However, 74 years later, that is in the year 1985, some divers discovered where the gigantic ship landed, more than 12,500 feet below the deep ocean waters. There were times when scientists and travelers were able to go and tour that place below the ocean waters simply to see the legendary Titanic ship. However, in the year 2012, The journey to that place deep down the ocean waters was completely banned for various reasons, one of them being the high cost of traveling deep down the ocean. The Titanic ship captain Sir Edward Smith was recognized as a champion and a patriot who saved so many people's lives to the very last moment but failed to save his own. The last words he was heard saying to the people were, "You people have tried your level best to save the lives we can save. I don't want much from you, for you have done your level best. Now let everybody struggle for his own life. As the rule of the sea has it, everybody for himself, and may God bless you all." The chief captain advisor, Mr. Joseph Bruce Ismail, was among those rescued by the boats. After the massacre, he started dissociating himself with the people, moved to stay near the lakes of Ireland, where he lived independently throughout his life. There is always one common rule among ocean, sea and lake travelers. Any moment the ship travels, it should carry along with it some animals. Human beings alone are sinful creatures and would definitely make the journey to be unsuccessful. Such animals like dogs and cats are carried along to bring luck and success to the journey. Titanic never carried even a single cat. It carried only 12 dogs, 9 of which got killed, leaving only 3 dogs that survived. The person who perhaps benefited from the sinking of the Titanic ship was Sir James Cameron. He was the composer of the Titanic film. James' Titanic film has been sold for more than $4 billion since the year of its release in 1997. If that amount was to be used to construct other big ships like Titanic, then it could have constructed at least 11 such gigantic ships. Thank you guys for watching and enjoying the Titanic storyline. I would only request that you share the video and you share your thoughts through the comment sections. And for more information regarding Titanic, I would refer you to Wasafi Media FM for more elaborate stories about the wreckage of the Titanic. Thank you and see you in the next storyline. Bye.